Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly wrap. It's week 5 of 2022 and it is February the 5th. It's a Saturday morning, and as you can see here, it's beautiful and sunny right now. The birds are literally chirping and it's quite warm. I've just come from a business breakfast where I've caught up with a bunch of colleagues around some topical discussions to do around the fees paid versus the cost incurred. Two completely different things. They sound very similar, but the fees paid is the monetary thing that we outlay, and the cost incurred is the actual real, like sometimes even intangible costs that actually go into something. And it's basically on the back of what I talked to last week on the, week 4's the weekly wrap, around the delay in products coming out of China, the procurement process with coming into the Chinese New Year, and how, for example, in Australia, we're a nation that stays on holiday for a good portion of January. Actually, to be honest, the whole of January, because it's only been this week now it's passed that everyone's come back to work. And the key marker for that is our Australia Day national long weekend or national holiday. And a lot of people, especially in the corporate side of things, stay off until this particular day, and then they transition and start the new year once that's completed. Now, the interesting thing about this year is that it actually happened on a Wednesday. And the irony of that is Australia is kind of got that chilled out, lazy sometimes mindset of like, oh, we'll just start the following week, and they extend their week out so they don't come back on the Thursday or the Friday. Now, what's interesting this year is it's actually pushing further into the Chinese New Year, which is going to delay the products and services coming out of China on the slow boat and or by plane. So what we're actually already starting to understand and get some dialogue around, and I've had experience in this for probably 30 years now, based on a lot of the importation and exportation that I've had out of Asia, and the delays that happen at what we're coming up to now, and the pushback on completions on projects and so on because of the delay in products that are coming out of Asia, primarily China. And what's interesting, this conversation we had this morning in a roundtable discussion was what to do and how to mitigate it, risk mitigate it. And I sort of raised the question, which was very contextually relevant and also that simple, that it was kind of like, you know, the old tale of the army truck trying to get under the railway bridge, and it can't because of the height clearance of the bridge. And all the generals and everyone is standing around trying to figure out how to remove the bridge and raise the bridge and so on and so forth. And then the little kid that lives in the town comes up and goes, why don't you just let down the tires? And it'll not so much raise the bridge, but obviously lower the height of the truck so that you can get under it. This situation right now is exactly the same. Two things, actually 3 things. Our New Year's is on the 1st, right? As a Western civilization, it's on the 1st of January every single year. The Chinese is some 6 odd weeks later. Why on earth do we remain on holidays 4 weeks after our New Year when it's pivotal to a lot of industry here in Australia and around the world for that matter? This is not exclusive to Australia. That we then stay on vacation for another 4 weeks and then come back with a short, anywhere from a week to 2 week window before China closes down for their New Year. So my point to this is, this doesn't change year in and year out, yet the naivety, the very narrow-minded focus, and the laziness, I'm going to call it out, the laziness by which people and organizations don't look to risk mitigate this situation when we know the dates well in advance. We know the dates well in advance, and it is at the same time every single year that all this now gets pushed back and back and back and back and back and back and back, which will ultimately delay projects, especially around Easter. And then that has a long tail effect into our fiscal year, the close of our fiscal year, which is June 30th. So this week's wrap is basically one of those things where it was good to extrapolate on what I discussed last week with a group of people in a roundtable conversation, and actually push it out there to say, it is our short-sightedness that we then don't have the foresight to risk mitigate this situation. And it is the same every year. What is the proof of insanity? It is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting something to change. So we must change the mindset. The contextual intelligence around this is not set by what our intellect is or that of the organization. It is set by what the calendars of nations are. Australia Day's holiday is always the 26th of January. The Chinese New Year, the date eludes me right at this point in time, but we know it is at the time which we're coming into right now. So we must be more mindful of this, and we must make the critical decisions. And it's not even critical analysis or critical thinking. It's very simple. It's there in the calendar. Look at the damn calendar and make the appropriate actions prioritized so that we hit the mark for Easter and then also the end of financial years, which is coming up very shortly. So the weekly wrap this week is simply around not being lazy, going accountable, having the foresight to look at the calendar that does not change. This is laziness, this is a lack of accountability, and this is a lack of intent to actually creating something and getting completion, which is an equally a sign of the integrity as how we conduct ourselves, firstly as individuals, secondly as organizations, and thirdly, it's the experience to the customer. And in today's sentiment, with the way the world is right now and everything we've gone through over the last 2 years, it's about time we sharpened our pencils and we got to action and we got to work. Not after the 26th of January, but the minute the clock strikes for the new year. We can have a day or 2 or 3 off, that's fine, but not the 2, 3, 4 weeks, because it is hypercritical to the success and the completion and a positive pathway forward with a strategic focus. So come on everybody, let's not do this again next year. Let's look at the calendars and mark it accordingly, and we must prioritize. We must prioritize. Take your holidays with the Chinese New Year if you must, but do not allow it to delay any more projects or completions of things, because what we've all been through over the recent few years is critical to actually leapfrogging and getting back to a forward projection, to a forward traction that is going to hit the milestones that we need to be hitting right now. This isn't about going back to old norms. This is about creating new norms, and that's with the contextual intelligence of looking very simply at first principles, what the baseline is. The baseline in this situation is the calendar. It's that simple. Take care. I'll see you next week for the weekly wrap.